The parable, in summary, is that people could either eat of the fruit of the tree of life and remain as they were forever, just like all the other animals, or they could learn morality and become like unto the gods.
When times get tough, you need to get down. No need to look backward, put your feet on the ground. Stand up, stand up.
Welcome to the TheFallenState. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I do appreciate it. The TheFallenState is on subscribestar.com. So click the link in the video description to support our work. And thank you in advance. I do appreciate it. I have with me Aron Ra. He is an author, podcaster, and former president of the Atheist Alliance of America, a nonprofit committed to raising the public awareness of atheism. Thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So, what is an atheist? Can you define what that is for me?
Oh, certainly. Throughout history, there have been a number of theologians and politicians who have been deeply concerned with one question: do you believe in God? And the answer yes means you're a theist, and this applies to any God. And the answer no means atheist, and that is the word atheism means without theism. So there are some people that want to put in other terms or color things a little bit, but that's because they're interested in philosophy and are looking for an argument. In simple layman's terms, the theist says there is a God. The atheist says, I don't believe you.
And so you don't believe, do you believe there is a God?
No.
Do you believe there is a devil?
No.
No. And have you always had this belief?
Well, this isn't a belief. This is a lack of belief. And I didn't realize what belief really meant in religious terms until I became an activist myself, when I discovered that belief is an act of will. See, if I say that I believe something, it means that this is what I think is most likely true or closest to the truth, but that I don't know it because I can't show it. Whereas a believer tends to put a different spin on that. I mean, they believe as a conscious act of will to convince themselves of something that is not evidently true. And so that's what that it seems to me that believers involve more make-believe than what I would call a sincere belief. So I don't use the word believe anymore in application to what I do. I mean, I think this or that, and I'm open to change my mind all the time.
And so you have no proof that there is no God or no Satan. You just blah, blah, blah.
Do you have proof that there are no leprechauns?
No.
Do you believe in leprechauns?
No.
Okay, so if you don't have a reason to believe something, that's a pretty good reason not to believe it.
Were you a Christian at one time?
I was, because I was lied to. I was told that God was a conclusively proven scientific fact, and that to question whether there was a God was just as crazy as to question whether we really have a president. And I didn't realize for the longest time that I could even question that. And then, of course, all of the claims that not just my family's religion, but in fact any religion ever made with regard to God were always empty assertions.
So you don't know that there is no God.
No, I know that there's no God because God is not even a possibility. It's a logical contradiction.
Oh, okay.
Now, for the longest time, I was just an agnostic atheist because I didn't have sufficient information. I wasn't convinced that there was a God, but it seemed less and less likely as time went on. Eventually, I realized that the Hitchens razor is what is asserted without evidence may be dismissed without evidence. That makes perfect sense to me. And my favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln is that it is an established maxim in morals that he who makes an assertion without knowing whether it is true or false is guilty of falsehood. And the accidental truth of the claim does not justify or excuse him. And in fact, every religion posits baseless assertions as if it was a matter of fact, And I know a philosophy professor who says that faith is pretending to know things you don't know. And that seems an apt description. Every religion makes claims as fact that they cannot show to be true. And so we would call that lying.
So who told you that there was a God?
There's a number of people that told me different versions of God, although they could never agree with who God is or what God is, but they all profess to know him personally.
When you first became a Christian, who told you at that time that there was a God?
My family, of course, raised me to believe that there was a God, and then I got to see inter-Christian prejudice, because my family are one denomination, and then some other denomination would inquire as to what religion I am, and every time I knew that if somebody asked me what my religion is, there's going to be a problem, because if my religion matters to you, then we're not going to agree on much.
And so when you say your family, are you referring to your father and mother were the first to tell you that?
My mother was the first to tell me that.
It's always the mother. Why do you think it's the mother that's always telling the kids that and not the father, for the most part?
Well, it's good that you say for the most part, because here in Texas we have a lot of preachers that tend to take the helm on that. But fortunately, I didn't grow up in Texas.
Yeah, but in the home, why do you think it's the mother or the grandmother that's always telling the kids, taking them to church and telling them that there is a God? And most of the time, it's not the father, but it's the mother.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen a statistic that women, particularly women over 50, tend to be more susceptible to all kinds of scams, and they're more readily believe con men and that sort of thing. I don't remember what the specific statistic was to quote it, but I remember reading that once upon a time, and I've seen that to be anecdotally confirmed.
Right.
Yeah. My mother was always religious, and she, fortunately for me, my family had a tradition that you don't indoctrinate the children until they reach the age of reason. Fortunately, because
what age is that?
That's usually determined to be 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
So there was an old Jesuit saying that if you give me a child until he is 7, I will show you the man. Because if you indoctrinate children into religion in those formative years, you can utterly stunt their development of critical thinking, such that many people never recover from it and can never tell truth, fact from fiction. But I was fortunate in that my family had it a little backwards, so that on my 8th birthday, my mother came into my room with a Bible in hand, instructing me to read the Bible because this is the absolute truth and the word of God and all of that. But by that time, I was already in 2nd grade. I'd already seen a book on dinosaurs with cladograms and that sort of thing, and I understood what evolution was. So it was impossible for me to read Genesis as if it's talking about an actual talking snake and cursed trees as if they were literal trees that you could chop down and build a canoe out of. It was clearly parable. These were obviously metaphor, and I understood that at 8.
And did you tell your mother that at the time when she came in with the Bible?
Oh yeah.
And what did she say?
She dragged me out to confront my grandparents about this. And after I had read the Bible, and I think this was actually a later occasion when I tried reading it again at 11, because the fight just went on for a long time. But it was either 8 or 11 when I came up with an understanding of what Genesis had meant to say, and that what the metaphor is, that is talking about how you can never go home again. That's a common colloquialism. That once you can either remain as you are, like the rest of the animals, unchanged forever, or you can learn morality essentially, and then you will no longer be like the other animals. You would be like unto God. And so and you can't give women credit for this sort of thing, because the Middle Eastern cultures could never give women credit for anything. I mean, when you go out of the Old West and it's always men, then there's gunfights and all of that. But when women show up, now they're going to church on Sundays and everybody has to behave themselves, So we have to give credit to women to some degree for their establishment of civilization. But of course, as I said, the Middle Eastern cultures that wrote the story wouldn't give credit to women. So instead, they labeled it as a bad thing, and that it's women's fault, and they couldn't give women credit for that either unless she was misled by somebody else. So they create the this talking snake character.
Have you noticed that every time you listen to the woman, you suffer?
I'm a married man, and I'm not going to go there.
What
But
would
when I
happen?
mentioned this,
What
when I
would
mentioned this to my grandparents, my grandfather particularly freaked out. He said, "Well, then what is the meaning of life?" And that question confused me. That's a nonsense question.
Yeah.
It's like when you imagine the
Why is that a
the
nonsense question?
well, imagine the stereotypical fortune teller, right? They always take something completely random, like shuffling a deck of tarot cards, or casting the tea leaves, or casting the chicken bones, according to whatever tradition, and then they read what that means, right?
Right.
Well, it doesn't mean anything. It's completely random. They're just coming up with interpretations so that they can sell you something and get a couple of pieces of silver out of it. That's all that means. So asking what life means implies that there was an intended purpose to it, which again, the construct of everything we see about life in the biosphere and the biodiversity that we have and all of that, not just today, but in past times, and shows pretty clearly this was not an intended design. And my family just couldn't get around that. They had to imagine that they were the reason the universe existed, that it was all created just for them. And when I said that, no, we are insignificant, we are just momentary glimpses in this in the cosmic sphere, that we only occupy this, like, 0.0 to the 23rd power little fraction of it, and only for a millisecond, and then that's it. We are not the reason the universe exists. The universe existed long before us. It will exist long after us. But when I said that, I was accused of being arrogant.
As a
And
kid?
they accused me of being arrogant, and saying that it was humble of them to assume that God created the universe just for them.
And so when your mother brought the Bible into the room for you and told you, hey, read this, this is what it's all about, and you refused to do it.
No, I did read it.
Oh, well, why did she take you to your grandparents?
Because I came up with a different interpretation than she did.
Oh,
I
I
saw it
see.
as a metaphor. I didn't read it literally. How could I read it literally? Snakes can't talk.
And so
This-
when
this-
you went to your father and told your father to tell your mother to back off, when you asked your father to tell your mother to back off, what did he say to your mother? Did he tell her to back off?
Oh, no, my father and my mother were already divorced by that time,
Oh,
and they were in very different spheres. Although my dad was never a critical thinker either, I'm sorry to say. He once went to go see a magic show when I was 19. He lived in Las Vegas. He went to go see a magic show, and he came back after watching Doug Henning, and he said that Doug Henning was not just doing illusions, but that he was doing real magic. And I was deeply disappointed in my father for not having any critical thought that way.
how
I
old
mean,
were you
he-
at that time?
I was 19.
Oh, okay. And
for
who were
that.
you closest to, your father or your mother?
Oh, I'd have to say definitely my mother, because my father was intolerant of anyone who was different than him. And it wouldn't matter how many similarities you had with him, he would focus on the thing that's different and not let that go.
And what did he think of you being an atheist?
We didn't have a lot of time to discuss that. It was right toward the end of his life when he realized that I was atheist, and also that I was stronger than he expected me to be. And so we had one discussion about it. He had seen one of the videos that I'd done early on in my career, and he says, "Well, that don't prove there's no God." And I said, "We don't need to prove that there's no God. If there's no support for the assertion in the first place, we don't need to disprove. If somebody thinks that they see pink elephants, we don't have to prove that pink elephants don't exist. He's making the assertion. It is incumbent upon him to show that there are elephants. And if he fails that, if nobody can show that there's evidence of pink elephants and they're not even possible in the first place, then we don't believe that. That is dismissed."
And
And
so,
so I think my dad understood that, because on his deathbed, my mother asked whether he wanted to have the missionaries come by and pray over him, and his eyes darted to mine, and he says, "No, I think it's too late for that."
amazing. And that meant what to you?
I don't want to put words in a dying man's mouth. I was never able to ask him what that meant, nor did I want to push the issue at that time. Um, I assume I think that he was thinking past that.
Oh, I see.
That he understood the argument that I gave him.
When
I
you
don't know that, but that's what it looked like to me.
when you say your father thought that you were stronger than your father didn't think you were stronger than you were, what do you mean by that?
My dad always had a rule that we the boys, his sons, were all supposed to be. We were supposed to grow up to be dangerous, scary men among men. That other people had to fear us and all of that, and that was the attitude that he had. And I mean, once upon a time, I was asking to reschedule a flight while he met per his request. And I remember asking somebody, I'd like to reschedule this flight, please. And because I said the word please, he reached out and hit me, because you don't say please. You grab the world by the throat and make it give you what you want. That was his attitude. And my thought is, I'm dealing with a customer service person. If I'm polite, they were more likely to oblige my request. And if I'm rude, they are more likely to refuse me, just out of spite. I've worked in customer service. I know that works.
And so, did you love your father?
I did, despite all of the long list of terrible things that I heard about him. There were also, as with everybody, there were also positives. And so I just had to put away all of the things that I knew that he did 30, 40 years earlier, and just focus on our relationship as it stands now.
And did you forgive him before he expired?
To a large degree, yes.
Did you tell him that?
I don't think I had to.
And why not?
I think he understood. I think we seemed to understand each other pretty well at the end.
And when you say to a large degree, but why not the whole degree?
Well, I don't want to say that I've forgotten everything that he's done. I mean, we still have to keep our judgment sane. You know, I bear in mind behaviors that he had, and that when he realized he was terminal, he significantly changed. So, but I realized there was a pre-terminal version of him that was very different. I went up to 5 years at a time, multiple times, without speaking to my dad at all, because it wouldn't matter how I tried to connect with him. He would find that difference and use that as a means of starting a fight. And it was, as I said, it wasn't until the last few years of his life that he stopped doing that, and that allowed me, to forgive the rest.
When you say your father got upset because you said please to the worker, who taught you to say hello and thank you, please?
That's just common society. That's how people talk.
Did anyone say to you at any point in life to say thanks?
I'm sure. I mean, kindergarten, first grade,
Did your mother teach you that, to say please and thanks?
I'm pretty sure everybody taught kids to. Mr. Rogers taught kids to say please and thanks.
But did your mother teach you to say please and thanks?
I'm sure she did. Everybody did.
And so why would she need to tell you that, to do that, if you already knew to do it?
I just told you everybody teaches children to do that.
So was it right for your mother to teach you to say hello and thank you, please? Was it right for your mother to teach you that?
Well, that is the right kind of behavior. Had she not taught me, I would have learned it elsewhere. Had nobody actually said, you should say please and thank you, I would still have known it.
So
because I live in this society, and this is how people talk to each other.
Right. So was it right for your mother to teach you to say hello and thank you, please?
If that's the way that society functions, this is a pro-social society, then yes. And so the same message is being reinforced through every source. So yes.
So what made you accept your mother telling you to say please and your father telling you no, don't say that?
Well, I guess
why would you reject one and accept the other?
Well, one, because the entirety of society was on my mother's side, and my dad only acted like that with me once. I told you I went long time without ever speaking to him, repeatedly, specifically because he was so rude.
And so, did you identify with your father in the same manner that your mother identified with him?
I don't know how my mother identified with him. I saw them as being violently different people.
And so, oh, your mother was more violent toward your father than your
No,
father.
no, no. They're very different people.
Your mother was
mean,
violent.
No. I mean violently different. I mean they are so dramatically different. Let me say dramatically different instead of violently different. Okay.
Okay. What's the difference between your mother and your father? And
my mother is active in her church. She has a position in her church. She's always had it. She's always known what denomination she is, even if she doesn't know much of anything else. Whereas my father's side of the family never cracked open a Bible. They don't know what a creed is. They don't care what the Bible says, but they're better than me because they're Christian. And they don't even use the word Christian. As my dad put it, he says, I just believe in the man upstairs. And that was the extent of their theology.
so you're saying that your father was a better person than your mother because your mother was hiding behind the church and your father revealed himself. That's the difference?
No,
because you noted that the church women are the worst ones. They hide behind the Bible.
Well, sadly, no, because she didn't do as much Bible study as I did. And he did none at all.
But she hid behind the church.
She identified with the church, yes. And many times we would talk about, what I've asked her a number of times, what do you believe? And she says that she believes what her church believes.
But you notice in the home she raised hell. That's why your father was violent to her because he couldn't deal with the hell. He couldn't deal with the hell that was in her.
My father was not violent to her. I never implied that in any
I thought
way.
you meant that you said they argue a lot, right?
Well, they argued a lot. Yes, they got divorced.
That's what I meant. And did you notice that your father couldn't deal with the hell than your mother, even though your mother was going to church, but in the home she was held to pay?
I don't think that my father thought of himself as non-religious. They were both pretty much the same in that respect.
Right, but did you notice that your father couldn't deal with the hell than your mother?
I was maybe 4 when they got divorced.
Right.
So I have virtually no memory of them being together. I have very sketchy memories of being 4 or younger.
When she was
less how they dealt with each other.
When she would speak of your father as you grew up, what would she say?
Oh, for a decade or at least, both of them would tell me terrible things about the other, as if one parent could turn the child against the other parent by telling them, your mother or your father are bad because X, right? And I've had to tell both of them. As a child, I had to tell both of them that you can't win this. You can't tell me that my dad did this evil thing, and Dad, you can't tell me what a horrible person my mother is because it doesn't matter. You're my dad, she's my mom. That's not changing. Same thing. I had the same conversation with my mother. I couldn't believe that I, as a child, had to explain this to adults. Yeah. That you're not going to be able to poison me against the other parent. Shut up.
Good, man. Let me ask, if you were to say to your wife, back off, I'm not listening to you, because and I think you agree that whenever the man listens to the woman, he suffers. What would happen if you stopped listening to her and you just led the way and she followed?
Okay, well, I don't agree that any time, it's funny when 2 men say something like that. If we're both married and we both have past experience with wives, because we do have a common experience there. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. Certainly, it doesn't mean that it's always true.
But have you noticed that every time you listen to her, you suffer?
No, I don't.
Why you haven't paid attention to that?
Because it's not true. I mean, there's a lot of things that she says that I disagree with, but I'll tell her that I disagree with them. And there are some things that she tells me that are actually good ideas.
How does she react when you correct her for being wrong?
It's never comfortable. There's always an argument.
Does she remind you of your mother?
No.
She's just like your mama.
No, she's not. My mother is not like my wife at all.
Which is worse, your mother or your wife?
That's a that is a very personal question. My mother has issues with the religion and such that my wife is not plagued with. So my wife has a natural handicap that my wife does not. When I met my wife, she was a believer, but not in the way that my mother was. My mother is one of those people who believes not just without reason, but against all reason, so that she will believe the belief even when she knows that it's false. She's going to believe it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
encountered people like
Oh,
that.
yeah. All the
They
time.
know that they're wrong, but they're going to believe it anyway. And
Yeah.
I don't see the value in lying to yourself, but she does. That's what she does.
So it
sadly.
sounds like your mother's worse than your wife.
That's what I just said. Yes.
And so how
my
did
wife was a believer, but she was reasonable. So we met online at Christian forums, and we got into an argument over evolution. And unlike every other creationist I've ever debated with, and there have been thousands, my wife asked sincere questions she actually wanted the answers to. Because when you argue with the creationists, they usually ask you things they don't want the answers to. They don't want to know what the answer is. They're looking for that place where you don't know what the answer is, because they think that whatever is unexplained by science is somehow explained by magic, which of course makes no sense. You know, there was a lot of things that we used to believe were supernatural, and then we've discovered what the real answer was. And that doesn't mean that before we knew what that answer was, like with epilepsy, for example. I mean, Socrates wrote that people believed that epilepsy was demonic possession. And he already knew that that was wrong, that there had to be a better explanation than that. And so when we didn't know about how the brain functions, well, we didn't know your neuropathy or any of that, that did not mean that our lack of understanding in that meant that God did it. It didn't mean that it was supernatural, that the supernatural explanation was wrong then, even before we knew what the real explanation was. And so it has always been that way. Anytime we find anything to be, you know, the natural explanation for anything, or when we find the explanation for anything, it always turns out to be natural. It's never supernatural. It's never magical. Mysticism has zero credence. Prayers don't work. It's been a complete failing game.
amazing. What are you? So is your wife an atheist now?
Yes.
And are you still an atheist?
Yes.
You're not a Satanist?
I am a Satanist in the sense that I paid $25 for a membership to the Satanic Temple. Technically, that makes me a Satanist.
So why would you become a Satanist
Same
if
reason
you
that
don't
I-
believe that Satan exists?
Because Satanists don't believe that Satan exists.
What do they believe? Well,
They
why
don't.
do they call themselves Satan then?
The Church of Satan, established in 1966 by Anton LaVey, if you look up their website, they have a listing of beliefs wherein they say pretty explicitly that they do not believe in an actual devil, that they follow the science. And if you look up the Satanic Temple FAQ, the FAQ, the Satanic Temple, established in 2013, also says that they don't believe in a literal Satan and an actual Satan. Satan is a symbolic character, much like Mother Nature or Uncle Sam, something like that. Excuse the dog, please. The
Is the dog
symbolic.
an atheist as well?
Well, if the dog has not been convinced to believe in supernatural things for no good reason, then he doesn't. So,
Amazing.
my position is that we are born atheist until somebody lies to us.
Amazing. And so, I'm sorry, you said your wife is not or is an atheist?
She is an atheist.
She is an atheist. Is
Yeah.
she happier now as an atheist than she was when she was a Christian?
Absolutely, yes.
Really?
Though that's not relevant necessarily. I mean, I forget who the poet was. George Bernard Shaw said something along the lines of whether a believer is happier than a skeptic is no more to the point than why a drunk person is happier than a sober one. No.
Tell me again, why did you join an atheist club? Because it sounds like you don't believe in joining. Why would you you know, you left the Christian church, which was adjoining, but you joined an atheist church.
I didn't join an atheist church.
You say you became a member, right?
I bought a membership to the Satanic Temple.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
But I also bought. I have ordinations at the Universal Life Church, at the Church of the Subgenius, at the Church of the Latter Day Dude, and have also supported the
I never heard all
the
those
Church of they're all joke churches
So what was the purpose of you buying memberships there? Why did you buy membership with those
because they're
groups?
all activists as well.
And what type
So,
of
and-
activists?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists, and that organization is all about defense of the First Amendment, which Christian nationalists are uniformly against. So the freedom of religion, where Congress shall make no law establishing a religion, they want to establish a religion, and Congress shall not prohibit the free exercise of religion. But Christian nationalism wants to prohibit the practice of other religions. And then there's also the other, everything in the First Amendment is the Christian nationalists are against: the free speech, the freedom to assemble, all of it. And so atheist activists, the American Atheists, for example, are trying our best to defend the First Amendment. And the Satanic Temple proved to be very valuable allies in that.
I noticed that the atheist people, the satanic people, are jealous of the Christians, and they want to.
Excuse me?
Yeah, wherever the Christians.
Would you say
wherever
that
the
doctors
Christians-
are jealous of cancer patients?
Wherever the Christians go and establish themselves, the atheists come there or go there to try to influence the devil instead of God. Why are they
There is
jealous?
there is
Why
no
are they,
devil.
Why? But they have a statue of what they believe is Satan. If they
No,
don't
that's not
believe
what
that
they
there is a
believe. That is the
Satan, why would
symbolic
they have?
character.
Why would they have symbols or statues of the devil if they don't believe there would be nothing there if they didn't
Again-
believe that the devil existed?
Again, you're conflating atheists and Satanists. Not all atheists are Satanists, and being Satanist really means no more than you just hold to the 7 tenets, which are ethical tenets, and they're better than the 10 Commandments.
So why do
by
they
far.
have these
So,
this image of Satan if they don't believe it?
for the reason I just explained, that Satan is a symbolic character, and they use that in their activism for First Amendment defense.
But I
As-
still don't
if-
understand that. If you don't believe something exists, how are you going to come up with a symbolic symbol
Because you-
of something that's not even in your mind that's real? It's not even in
Because
existence.
it's a symbol. Like, we don't believe that Uncle Sam exists, yet we depict him all over the place if you're patriotic, right?
But Uncle Sam does exist. His name is Joe Biden now.
No,
No, I'm
Uncle
saying-
Sam and Joe Biden are not the same thing.
No, I'm
And the
joking.
president of the United States is not Uncle Sam and never was.
He
Uncle
Grandpa
Sam
Biden
was a
right now.
symbolic character. Uncle Sam was a symbolic character meant to represent the United States. That's why his initials are Uncle Sam.
But it still
US.
doesn't make sense to me why these people are jealous of the Christians. And
They're
they,
not.
And they
Not
create
remotely.
Well,
Just
then
to
they
say that
always go and try to rule the Christians out by
No.
trying to overshadow them, and they bring this image,
No.
symbolic image of the devil.
No.
That doesn't make sense to me. If I don't
Because
believe
it's not
something
like that at all.
if I
It's
don't
not the
believe
least bit
something
like
that
that.
exists,
We are trying to help you. To say that we are jealous of you
You-
is to say that a doctor is jealous of cancer patients.
it may
It's not that-
be.
yeah, doctors don't help cancer patients because they want cancer.
Right. Doctor help
Okay.
cancer patients because they're on an ego trip.
No, doctors do not help.
I can
cancer
prove
patients
that
because
because
they're on
if a cancer patient say, "Okay, Mr. Doctor or Miss Doctor, I don't want that medication for my cancer. I'm going over to this person and I'm gonna take real stuff, come from the earth." That doctor
Okay,
would
so
get
then
jealous.
then the doctor knows that person is going to die from
The doctor
malpractice.
get jealous and say, "No, you can't go to a natural doctor. What?
No, it
I'm
has
the
nothing to do
hero
with
here."
Jealousy.
Yeah, that's jealousy. And so
No,
you,
it is not jealousy. If you tell me that you have a magic amulet, and that will, or a ring, and that because you wear this ring, that the ring wards off tigers, and then you go out in the front yard and show that there are no tigers in in Detroit or whatever, well, that doesn't mean the ring works.
But I'm not
So-
going to have a symbolic of anything that I don't believe in. If I don't believe it exists, how do I even come up with a symbol?
So you come up with a symbol, like when they established the United States, they created this character, Uncle
But these
Sam,
people create the devil while they're saying the devil doesn't
because it's a
exist.
symbol.
Let me ask you this. You said that prayer, you used to pray, I guess, and prayer never worked. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you're talking to yourself. You don't have magic powers. So prayer doesn't work.
And so I don't know if you can, but can you name me one thing that you prayed to God about and it didn't work for you?
Well, I can name something that did, which I think will be.
Can you
completely
name
against what
something
you
that
thought.
didn't work?
Yeah, I'll name something that did.
How
When I
about something
was-
that didn't?
I know, and I'm going to name something that did. When I was 12 years old and I started reading the Bible, I soon threw it across the room in disgust because I was lied to about what the Bible is. I was told that the Bible was the Word of God, that it was the absolute truth, that God is love and God is wisdom and all of that. And you don't have to get very far into the Bible to realize that none of that is true. But I still believed in God. Could not believe in the Bible for obvious reasons. I mean, all you got to do is read the Bible to know that it's complete garbage. So I prayed to God, just like it says in Matthew, I think 10, or was it Matthew 6? But I prayed to God in the privacy of my own room so as not to be like the hypocrites. And I asked God to redeem himself, to either, he explained himself really, to either show that the Bible was completely wrong about him or justify all of the horrible, ignorant stupidity that was being attributed to him in the Bible. And that answer, that prayer, I could say, was answered because over the course of the rest of my life, I have seen nothing but endless proof that the Bible is wrong.
And what proof? Can you give me an example of the proof to prove that is wrong?
Well, yeah, we know for certain that the global flood never happened. We've got all kinds of proof from every available.
And how do you
relevant
know that
science.
for certain?
Because I've studied geology and archaeology and anthropology.
And why do you believe
paleontology.
them?
What's that?
Why do you believe them?
Because I have the proof for them.
Amazing. And so, so that's your proof that you prayed to God for something and it didn't work.
And it never works. I mean, as George Carlin put it, you can pray to God and you will get the same success rate as if you pray to Joe Pesci. So there's the old phrase that the Lord only helps those who helps themselves, because of course God doesn't ever actually do anything. You have to do it yourself.
Amazing. And so if you don't believe, well, you don't believe there is a God, and I totally understand why. You're very, very clear to me as to why you don't believe there is a God. But let me ask, if there is no God, how did you come about?
How much time do you have for an evolutionary lesson?
Not a lot at all.
Okay. I did a 50-part series on the systematic classification of life on my channel. Anybody that's interested in that can go look at that. If you want the origin of life, I've also done a series of videos that are talking about that as well, in covering dozens of different scientific studies for the different incremental stages of the development of life.
So how did you come about?
I just told you.
How did you cause yourself to breathe?
You and I both are descended from earlier apes who already breathe.
That's how you cause yourself to breathe?
You don't have to cause yourself to breathe. You're descended from beings that already breathe.
And so you think that you breathe breath into, you start to breathe because when you were born into the earth through your mother, you gathered breath from that.
We have ingrained responses that we have inherited for many generations in prior incarnations of very similar forms, where we vary slightly from them, each at every stage. I can teach you evolution, but it is complicated and it's long because there's an awful lot to it. But I can teach it to you. I probably can't explain it to you if you have absolutely no idea. If the questions you're asking me now reveal that you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but I could explain this to you, and it would just take time, like taking a college course. So It's not something I can explain very, very quickly. It's not something I can explain in just a couple of minutes.
Have you, over your time of doing what you're doing, have you convinced a lot of Christians that they shouldn't be Christians? That there is no God?
Yes, I get frequent messages in various sources from believers, at least one or two a week, up to one a day, from former believers thanking me for having walked them out of their delusion.
Amazing.
And also for altering their lives. I mean, I've had a number of people who tell me that because of my video lessons and whatnot, they've decided to take up science, or they're now pursuing science as a career, something like that.
How do you feel about
messages
that?
like
How do you feel about that?
I'm delighted. I mean,
That you've turned people away from God. How do you feel about that?
If I've pulled somebody away from a lie, if I've cured someone of a poisonous, dangerous, misleading delusion, then I am delighted, because that is all God is.
So you celebrate turning people away from God?
I celebrate curing people of their poisonous delusions. Yes.
I understand that. I understand why you would celebrate that. But let me ask, when you are afraid, because you become afraid sometime inside, or you feel lonely, or you feel like something is missing, what do you do about those moments when you're alone, no one is around, and you have to deal with you? How do you deal with those moments when you feel fear on the inside, or doubt, or whatever? Those empty moments, how do you deal with that?
Don't know that I have those moments.
You never have empty moments?
I don't even know what an empty moment means.
Do you ever have fear moments from within?
I don't know what you mean.
Do you love the
Are you-
Christians?
What's that?
Do you love the Christians?
Once again, I'm sure that doctors treat patients because they care for their patients. You think they don't. You think doctors are only self-serving, and the only reason they want to cure patients is to make money out of it.
Yeah, to
I'm
make
sure that
money and be
people go to-
glorified
my
for it.
daughter, my daughter is pursuing a medical career, and it is because she cares about other people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So you're going to tell me that my daughter is just, you don't know how to hold a conversation very well if all you're going to do is insult your guests and their families.
How am I insulted? I'm disagreeing.
How are you insulting? By telling me that my daughter is a liar and that she doesn't actually care about people. You don't know how that's insulting.
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I wish somebody had, your mother, your father, Mr. Rogers, or somebody else taught you some basic manners like I learned when I was a kid.
Do you love the Christians?
Once again, I love people. And if those people are infested with a lie that is counterproductive and destroying them, yes, I will help them as best I can so that they will be better people and thus not Christian anymore.
So I'm black and slow. I want to know, do you love the Christians?
Once again, Christians are all people. I love people. And so I will help people. And whether they're afflicted with a poisonous religion, whether it be Christianity or Islam or Hinduism or whatever, I will do my best to help them out of that delusion.
And how about the Christians? Do you love them?
How many times do I have to answer yes in different ways?
But yes, I was looking for the yes or not different ways, but just the
Oh, yeah.
yes
Well,
or
I
no.
want to make sure that people understand me, because if I just say yes, then it seems that I just don't love Christians. But I want people to understand that I love all people, and it doesn't matter if they have a delusion or not, or which delusion it is.
But I didn't ask about all people. I just
I know
asked
you
about the
didn't.
Christians.
I was clarifying with my answer.
You wrote a book called "We Are All Apes."
That's correct.
Where's your proof that we are all apes?
What is an ape?
Right. What is the ape?
Right. An ape is any member of the taxonomic superfamily Hominoidea.
Amazing. Have you ever seen a human being turn into you ever seen an ape? Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Have I ever seen a dog turn into a dachshund?
No. Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human
Have
being?
I ever seen a car turn into a Corvette?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Have I ever seen a shark turn into a fish?
I didn't ask about any of those things. I asked, when have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
I'm trying to illustrate the fallacy of your question.
How's that fallacy? You wrote that we're all ape. You must have.
And we are.
You
And that
must
book-
have at some point all these hundreds and
Right, the
thousands
proof
of
is in there.
years. At some
That
point,
book is-
you would
that book
have
is
seen
24
if
illustrated
an
pages long.
ape turned into a human being. Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Once again, humans are apes in the same way that a duck is a bird. So if you ask me if I've ever seen a bird turn into a duck, that's kind of a stupid question. Or ask me
Because
if
I
I've
didn't
ever
ask
seen a
that.
duck.
I didn't ask
Okay,
that. I asked
did you ask?
I ask. Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
That is a nonsense question.
Why?
Because it's like asking for a place halfway between Los Angeles and California.
No, it's not. I didn't ask about that.
I know. Well, you don't know what you asked.
I do know. You wrote this book called "We Are All Apes,"
and it gives the proof
I'm
in
asking,
the book.
have you personally seen a human being, an ape, turn into a human being?
It would be impossible for a human being to be anything other than an ape, for the same reason that it is impossible for a dachshund to be anything but a dog. Have you ever seen a dog turn into a dachshund?
Why are you running from that question?
I'm not. I'm answering the
running.
question. I'm illustrating.
No,
what's
you're
wrong with
running.
the question.
You're running from that question. You wrote this book that
I'm
we are
facing
apes.
you head on, answering your question directly.
No, you're not.
Humans are a subset of the category of apes.
I didn't ask you that.
We
I
start
asked
out
you
apes.
how
We can't. So therefore, it makes no sense to ask how the parent category turns into the subcategory. It is exactly the same as asking if I've ever seen a bird turn into a duck. Do you understand why your question? Have you ever seen a bird turn into a duck? How about I ask you that?
But that
question?
wasn't the question.
But that's the same question, isn't it?
You wrote the book saying we
fallacy.
are. You tried to divert. You tried to deviate from the question. And you wrote a book called "We Are All Apes." And so how can you write a book that says we're all ape when you've never seen a ape turn into a human being?
Have you ever seen a duck turn into a? Have you ever seen a bird turn into a duck?
Why are you dodging the question, man?
I'm not dodging the question. I'm answering it.
No, you're not. It's like when I asked you if you loved a Christian, you went all around. I answered
that question.
I asked you where you're going. You tell me where you've been.
And I answered your question directly.
No, you didn't. You're not answering this one.
Yes, I did.
So one more time with that, and then we have to move on.
You don't understand what the word ape means.
Ape?
That's why I'm trying to explain it to you.
Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Okay, let's look at that. What does the word ape mean? That means a bipedal hominoid with a certain number of hair follicles, with a certain type of teeth, with fingerprints and fingernails. That means all of these descriptive features that we share. Have I ever seen us turn into us?
You just use the word, but you're not making sense because I do want to know.
You don't know anything at all about taxonomy whatsoever. So how can I?
So you're not able to answer that question.
Who doesn't know anything about it.
So you're not able to answer that question. I want to do a follow-up.
Do you understand that the word ape is a taxonomic question? Right? That's a taxonomic word. Do you understand what it means?
No, that's not the question. though. You're deviating.
No, I'm not deviating. What
now,
does the word
if
ape
you
mean?
prove to me that you've seen a ape turn into a human being,
what does the word ape mean?
Word can mean many things. But let me ask you this.
But this word means one thing. What does it mean?
I have no idea.
It means any member of the taxonomic set superfamily Hominoidea, which means that it has a number of these characteristics: fingernails and fingerprints, the certain type of dentition that we have, certain type of ears that we have. All of these characters, the two pectoral mammae, et cetera. There's a whole long list of different physical characteristics that define what an ape is.
Okay, so fine. I don't care about the humanity, but what I do want to know, I do want to know if you ever seen an ape.
You ask me a nonsense question.
I want to know, have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being? After all these years, you would have think that somebody, somewhere, somehow, would have seen an ape turn into a human being, and no one has ever seen that.
Except that you're asking a question that makes no sense.
Even the people books that you have read and the folks that you listen to have never seen that.
Are we done here? Because you're not going to listen to my explanation. You're asking me
because you're not answering my question.
I am answering your question.
You're going around my question. You don't
understand what it means.
You're going around my question. You're not answering my question.
I did not go around your question.
You did. I asked you, have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
You don't know what the word ape means.
I don't care about the word. I do know what it means. I'm asking you.
Okay, then tell me, what does the word ape mean?
I asked you, have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
You're using these words. I want to know what you think these words mean, because I know what the words mean.
The one thing I know for sure.
Yeah, I know for sure what
I
the
know
words mean.
for sure.
and I can prove what
That
the words mean. But you may be
and
using
no
them
one has
incorrectly, and I
ever
think you are
seen
using them incorrectly.
you and
So
those
what does the word ape mean to
you
you?
and those people who are claiming that apes turned into human beings or human beings
I
came
don't
from
claim
apes.
that apes turn into
No.
human beings. We are
That human
apes.
being came from apes.
A
Have
human,
no
a
proof
human
of that
being can't be
at
anything
all.
other than an ape. We
Hey,
are classified as apes.
You're not listening.
Oh no, you're not listening.
No, you're not listening.
Okay. All right. So is that where we're going to be here?
No.
Are we done?
No.
You either learn how to have the communication both ways, or we're done here.
You have to learn how to answer a question.
I did answer the
No,
question.
you didn't.
Yes, I did. I
No,
explained
you
to
did
why
not
the
answer
question
the
makes
question.
no sense.
Let me
I
ask.
explained to you why the question makes no sense. Have you ever seen a bird turn into a duck? Does that question make any sense to you?
Right, just like, have you ever seen a ape
Do you
turn into a
understand that all
human?
birds are
It's
ducks?
as
do you
dumb as
understand
that.
Do you understand that ducks are birds?
That question is as dumb as the question about ape.
What you asked
You
me is a
believe
dumbass
that
question. I'm
ape
trying to
turned
show you
into-
how dumbass it is. Do you understand that ducks
Did you say
are
dumb
birds?
ass?
Do you understand that ducks are
Did you
birds?
say dumb ass? What the?
Yes.
Let me
Do
ask
you
you
understand
this.
that ducks are birds?
You believe in evolution, right?
I don't believe in it. No, I can show it, demonstrate it, prove it even to you. Do you understand that ducks are birds?
Why do you believe in evolution
Because I can prove it
if no
even
one
to
has
you.
ever seen it?
But we have seen it.
No, you
Yes,
haven't.
We've relied on it throughout the entire history of
No one has
agriculture.
ever seen
It is
it.
demonstrated fact. We can observe it. We can test it, verify it numerous ways. I can prove that even to you.
So
Now,
why
get back
is
to my question
evolution?
so that you can understand this?
Why is
Do
evolution
you
still?
understand?
Why
do you
is
understand that a-
evolution just a theory even today?
Why is it that atomic theory is just a
See,
theory
you're not
today?
answering the question. You're asking
I
the
am.
question with
I'm
another
explaining to you
crazy
what's the problem.
question.
Why is it the theory of gravity is just a theory today? You know
Why is evolution still considered a theory?
For the same reason that atomic theory is still considered a theory, for the same reason that the theory of gravity is still a theory, for the same reason that the germ theory of disease is still a theory,
So
for the same
because
reason
it
that
can't
the
be
cell theory of
proven to be
biology
real.
is theory. Because there is a rule in science that we want to go the complete opposite direction of religion, and rather than assert things to be true that are not true, we are not allowed to proclaim absolute truth. So everything that we know to be true has to be regarded as a theory, on the hypothetical potential, at least, that something could be improved or changed later on.
That's
So
amazing.
there is a rule.
Because
there
of
is a rule in
time, let me
science-
ask you this.
There is a rule in science that you cannot
No,
prove.
you're talking
and if there's a
theory.
rule in science. I'm answering your question. You
But
won't
you're
let me
talking
answer it.
theory.
I'm answering the question and you won't let me answer it. There is a rule in science that says that you cannot prove any theory to be true in the positive sense. At most, the most you can do is show that
I
it's
know
not true.
scientists who have proved that God exists, and I know
No, you
those
don't.
who are against God, and they
No, you
think
don't.
that God doesn't exist.
No, you don't.
But let me ask you,
No, you
because
don't.
of
You
time.
don't know.
I
You
do
don't know
know.
any science
I
proofs.
know
No,
scientists
you
who
don't.
have proved that
No,
God exists.
You don't.
I do.
No, you don't.
Yes.
Then where is their Nobel Prize? Why have I not heard of them? Why are there still atheists? Why is
Because
the
it-
majority of the scientific community still
Because
atheist?
because
If
the Nobel
some
Prize
scientist had ever
people.
proved that God existed, then we would all know that God exists, right?
Because
But
the-
we don't. Nobody knows that
Oh
God
yes,
exists.
but let me ask.
That's why there are more and more scientists every year who are atheists, who are walking away from their faith. Atheism is on the rise in all 50 states and around the world, while Christianity is in a general state of decline.
The reason that
everywhere.
there are
In the
Nobel
last 20 years, atheism has eclipsed Judaism, then Catholicism, and now even Protestantism. Yes, there are less, and that's just in the regular community. In the scientific community, if there's only a third of people who still believe in God in any concept at all. So no, you don't know.
Oh,
any
yeah.
scientist.
Yes,
who
I do.
proved, and you can't
And you,
show
let me
documentation
say
of
this
that.
to you. You asked why there are no Nobel Peace
All right, I
Prize
think we're
for.
done. If all you're going to do is lie to me,
You asked why there are
and
Nobel
and
Peace.
that's apparently all you're going to do.
You
then
asked
we
why
can't
aren't
have
there
a
any
meaningful conversation.
You asked why are there any Nobel Peace Prize for the scientists who have proven God exists?
That's not what
because
I said
the
at
people
all.
who
I
hand
said,
out
I called you
the-
out. You
the
told
people-
a lie.
The people
You
who
said that there were
hold
scientists
on.
who proved that
Hold
God
on.
exists.
Say, hold on.
There is no scientist. There is no.
Say, get behind me.
No,
Hold on.
no scientist has ever done that.
Um,
If that had happened,
let me say
there would
this to
be
you.
buckets of documentation.
Let me
for
say
it.
that the reason
scientist
that
would have gotten the Nobel Prize and the Templeton Prize, they'd be
All
world
right,
famous.
fine. The reason that the scientists who prove that God
There is no science to
exists
prove God exists.
doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize because
there
the people
is
who
no
are handing
science.
out the Nobel Peace Prize
No,
are of
no.
their father, the devil. So they hate the children
there
of
is
God.
no devil either. Okay, I think we're done here.
No, we not quite yet. Almost. Are you into politics at all?
Yes.
Did you vote for the Great White Hope?
Did I vote for the Great White Hope? I don't know that there is a Great White Hope.
Have you
I
ever
voted
heard of
against
Donald
the greater
Trump?
evil.
You heard of Donald Trump?
I voted against the greater evil.
Did you vote against?
ISIS has spread like cancer. Another mess I inherited.
That's the Great White
The crime
Hope.
boss, whose figure you're holding up now, that's the one I voted against.
Wow. I noticed that atheists tend to lean more toward the left more than toward the right. Why is that?
That's not true for a lot of cases, I'm sorry to
I
say.
said most, not all, but why is that?
Because a lot of us care more about truth than others, and that's
but the
always
left is
been
of
my
the
issue.
lie.
What's that?
The left is of the lie. They're of their father,
Excuse
the
me,
devil.
no, that itself, what you just said, is a lie
Why is that?
because it's documented false. It's factually
I have
false.
proof. Why would
You
a
don't have
man
proof.
that is left like you try to turn anyone away from God? If you don't believe that there
You have
is a
said all
God,
these thi-
you
you
work
keep-
all
you-
the time to turn
You
people
keep
away
saying
from
things
God.
that are nonsense. You keep making assertions that are factually false.
You
keep
said
telling
you
me
have helped.
things about myself that are wrong.
You
told me
said that
things
you have
I-
helped Christians, those who
No,
believe in
no,
God,
okay.
turn away from Him.
All right. What would you like me to do?
I
Would you
gotta
like me to
put-
just sit here and let you lie to me?
No, I got to put you on the hot seat. I need you to answer
Okay.
these questions as quickly as possible.
You won't let me answer questions because you don't understand what stupid questions you're asking and how the question contradicts itself.
Right, just watch
don't
me.
understand
Just
why
write
it's
me off as
nonsense.
black and slow. But I need you to answer these questions as quickly as possible. All right?
I don't know why I should entertain you anymore, but go ahead.
The hot seat.
Do you love white people?
I don't distinguish white. There are white people that I love, yes.
What
But that doesn't mean that I love people because they are white.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
The egg came long before chickens.
Does the bear shit in the woods?
Some of them.
Did you take the jab?
What's the jab?
Is white supremacy real?
Is white supremacy real? You mean the movement for white supremacy? Do white supremacists exist?
Is white
Yes,
supremacy?
there are-
Is white
That sort of
supremacy
bigoted
real?
person really does exist. Yes.
I'm sorry.
You asked if white supremacy is real.
Right.
If that means, do white supremacists, people who think that they are superior simply because they're white? Yes, such stupid people really do exist, I'm sorry to say.
Do you agree that abortion is worse than slavery?
No.
Is black supremacy real?
Again, I don't know what black supremacy is, so you're going to have to clarify what you mean by those terms.
But how do you know what white supremacy is but not know what black
I
supremacy
had to
is?
assume that by that you meant, do white supremacists exist? Yes, the Christian nationalists are mostly white supremacists.
Do black supremacy exist?
I don't know what black supremacy is. But if you're
Amazing.
talking about, if I was going to use an evolutionary term, then no, it doesn't exist, because as Darwin wrote himself, there is no subset of any species that is superior to the other. There literally is no race superior to another. He also wrote.
Where is Darwin now?
Darwin also wrote that there is only one human race.
Where's Darwin now?
Where is Darwin now? He's dead.
He dead. Is America the best country on this side of heaven?
There is no heaven. So if we can just say that the United States has some things going for it, or it did, but not so much anymore.
Is America
I can't
the
say
best
that
country
I
on this
definitely
side of
can't
heaven?
say- I definitely can't say that the United States is the best country in the world anymore.
Is America the best country on this side of heaven?
There's no heaven, so that question makes no sense.
Is the earth flat or round?
Oblate spheroid.
True or false? Feminists have never done anything good for women. True or false?
False.
Who is more evil, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, or Kamala Harris?
I'm going to say Hillary Clinton.
Did the cow eat the cabbage?
What are you talking about?
Can men get pregnant?
What is the cow and the cabbage about? Is that a myth I'm supposed to be aware of?
Yes.
I'm not.
Can men get pregnant?
Under normal circumstances, no.
Did you have fun?
I've had lots of fun.
Thank you for joining me, man. I appreciate it. And thanks for taking on the hot seat. Tell the people how to get to your videos, to your YouTube channel, and all the things that you're doing.
All right, thank you. My blog and such are at aronra.com. That's ARONRA. And of course, everything that I do is funded by Patreon, which is patreon.com/ARONRA.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, ring the bell. Check out our merch, amazing merch. And remember that The Fallen State is our Subscribe Star. Click the link in the video description to support our work. And let me hear from you. Thank you again for tuning in.